What is up, my friends? So with July 4th weekend coming up pretty soon, we are going to get our final Marvel movie of the year before we get into the whole end of phase 3 with Avengers 4 next year. The movie that we're getting is Ant-Man and The Wasp, the long anticipated movie for the sequel of the tiniest superhero around, and definitely one that has big implications as to where we might be heading to when we get to Avengers 4 next year. Now, I already did a post-credits scene explaining exactly what's going on and what that means for the future, but today let's talk about the ending and what that could mean for standalone and spin-off movies that we might be getting in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the future as well. So anyways, without further ado, let's just get into this. I'll just have a quick rundown of what happens first before we get into the ending and where the characters could be leading into. This movie basically deals with Hank and Hope reaching out to Scott because they need his help to retrieve Janet. Now, if you don't remember, Janet is the original Wasp who we saw in the first Ant-Man actually shrink all the way down, and she made it into the quantum realm, as we saw Scott actually did as well by the end of Ant-Man. This leads Hank and Hope to believe that maybe they can actually go save her, as Hank and Hope remember that Scott actually had a witness encounter with Janet, so she is still alive. However, Scott is still under house arrest after the events of Civil War, so they ultimately get him out and they tell him that they have built a quantum realm and they're going to have him go through that portal to save Janet. And Scott is just like, wait, if I'm out here with y'all, then how am I still going to pretend to be under house arrest? Which they explain they have a giant ant with an ankle monitor, just mimicking everything that he does, so everything is good. They then go to a black market dealer, Birch, to get a tech part they need, but that's when we get the films. I don't want to call her the villain because it ultimately isn't really a villain in a way. She's just looking out for herself, and that is Ghost, who shows up, takes it, and she also takes the lab that we saw them shrink down in the trailer and in the movie. They then go to one of Pym's former partners, Foster, in an effort for him maybe he can help them locate the lab. This is all immediately thwarted as the FBI shows up and they have to go because they're all on the run. Foster was of no help. Then tracks down the lab, but Ghost knocks them out and reveals that Foster has been helping her, and she reveals that her father worked for Pym as well and ultimately had an accident in the lab in which she was caught up as well when she was a young girl. This made her develop the phasing abilities that we see, but these phasing abilities, cool and all, they're ultimately killing her as well. She reveals that she needs Janet to take the quantum energy that she has in her in order to survive, but the process might end up killing Janet as well. This ultimately leads to Pym sort of having an attack, and then Hope is just telling Foster, like, you need to get him his pills. They're in that Altoids thing that he's carrying. When Foster goes to get that, however, a giant ant comes out and basically subdues him. This gives Scott and Hope the chance to knock out Ghost, and they retrieve Pym's lab once again, and they all manage to escape after the ant's help. Birch is angry now that he got duped by Ghost, Hank, Scott, and Pym, so he finds Luis and he basically makes Luis tell him where Scott is. Ghost is actually eavesdropping, so they're headed that way. Birch is like, we're not going to be able to get it from Ghost, so he gets one of his FBI informants and tells him where Scott is, and now all three of them are heading down there. So Scott has to leave before they can find him, not in his home, because remember, this guy's under house arrest and that giant ant is not look anything like Scott. Hope and Hank have no time, however, and they get caught and imprisoned, but then Scott returns to freedom and they go to confront Ghost and Foster. Scott takes on Ghost as Foster is subdued by Hank and a giant ants, and he promises that he will help Ghost once he saves Janet. Now being able to use his lab again, he goes into the quantum realm portal and begins hallucinating in there trying to find Janet. But Janet ultimately finds him, and she admits to him that she has found new powers that will have him regain his control. She does this sort of massage thing that does end up helping him. Meanwhile, however, Ghost has regained the lab again on the outside and runs in to finish the transfer of energy. Foster tries to talk her out of it doesn't work, and she continues. However, we see Janet start to fade out as she is transferring this energy, but Scott and Hope arrive in time to buy time for Janet and Hank to make it out. We then see Janet come out of the portal with Hank, and she immediately uses her powers to cure Ghost. Luis and ex-con capture Birch, Ghost and Foster escape together, and Scott rushes back home for the release of his home arrest. And the movie ends with Scott, Hope, and Cassie going to see a movie, and Hank and Janet going into their old house. And as already talked about the end credits, we see Scott going into the quantum realm to retrieve quantum particles for Ghost. And I'm just thinking, why the fuck did Ghost not do that in the first place? That could have prevented pretty much this whole movie, because they could have just told Ghost, we can get you those quantum energy particles and you don't need to kill Janet, but we can save Janet as well. So we could actually be working together, and pretty much we just could have just had Birch as a villain in the end. I don't know, but whatever the case is, I'm fine with what they give us. But anyways, pretty much I think that the ending is signifying a new direction that the MCU is taking, and that we're pretty much going to be seeing in Avengers 4, and that is different realities and whatnot with the quantum realm. And also, when I talked about spin-offs and standalone films, there is a talk about a Thunderbolts movie, which we might have Ghost be part of that team, and I think that would be pretty cool, because we find out in this movie that Ghost was actually an assassin and a spy for S.H.I.E.L.D. before it shut down. So I'm pretty sure there's other S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives out there like Ghost that are like looking to start something else, some mercs or whatever, and I think a Thunderbolts movie would definitely be a good addition after the Avengers, where we see a more edgier type of team out there than the Avengers, and maybe Disney could go with the hard R on that. I don't know, because I think they set up themselves pretty good now that they can go expand in different directions, but it'd be pretty weird actually to see an R-rated Disney movie. And also, I'm kind of bummed out that we didn't get to see Goliath actually go Goliath, because the conversation he was having with Scott about being giant and whatnot, that would have been really interesting to come back later down the road in the movie and be like, alright, let's see who is the bigger man right now, because literally, who is the bigger man? And that was just, I think, an opportunity, because when you find out that Foster and Ghost are in on this together and stuff, you're just thinking, yep, we're gonna see a fight pretty soon. But no, I feel like it was all let go too easily, but it feels more realistic in that way, I guess. But this is a comic book movie, but I don't know, I'm just talking to talk, because honestly, I did find that pretty interesting that they would tease this sort of like confrontation between Scott and Foster that was sort of felt lighthearted at first, but it was like once you knew exactly what was going on, you're like, okay, maybe this is actually going to happen. But those are just my 2 cents. And anyways, I would love to see him return and maybe at least go live once. But anyways, those are just some of the things that can happen after this movie. We have Thunderbolts. We also have the quantum realm out there. We have the new Wasp's abilities, who knows what else they can do. And we have Scott stuck in the quantum realm, as I already talked in the post-credits scene explanation video. So it's going to be interesting what new doors that this Ant-Man is going to open since he's in there, and all these realities mixing in one another. It's just going to be an interesting aspect to all of this. And then we also have to take into account that Captain Marvel is going to open even more of the cosmic doors that Guardians of the Galaxy did open. And it's just going to be interesting how the lore and mythology of this MCU is going to build upon all of these things. Said, I would really love to see Ghost come back. I think her phasing abilities were really cool. The special effects that went into her as well. And I mean, just seeing her give a little taste of that power is pretty awesome. But it'd be interesting to see exactly how her powers have changed now that Janet did whatever she did. So we're just gonna have to wait and find out. But anyways, let me know your thoughts on the movie below. I'll also be having a whole theory explanation video as to where Scott goes after this and how exactly it will open into Avengers 4, especially with the set pictures we've gotten and the time traveling thoughts and all of that. So make sure you tune in for that by subscribing below. Also, go ahead and check out my other videos I've done as well. I have already done an ending explanation to The Purge. I'll be having a video on The Purge as well coming up this weekend, where I talk more in depth about it and the political and social comments it makes, and if those things actually are that clever or not. Also have an ending explanation to 2 really good Netflix movies called Tao and Brain on Fire, and also I have one coming up on Caliber, which is one I just checked out, and holy shit am I excited to talk about this movie because it literally caught me off guard. But anyways, check out all of those videos as well as all my other past catalog, and make sure you follow me on all the social medias as well in the comments below, and also in the description. Check them out, all that good stuff to keep caught up on all the things you love about movies, music, and games. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, share, all that good stuff. Also check me out on Twitch. I'll leave a link for that below. Check out the awesome artwork for sale as well in the links below. And as always, We're almost there to 5,000 subscribers. We are so close. We're like about 200 away. So let's get to it. I cannot wait to get to that. And I'll be having maybe a live stream or something. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, as always, that is going to do it for me. I'll see you next time. Stay positive.